This is I Want Studio podcast show. I am your humble host, Alex.
Okay. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay. So my background is very very geeky, very nerdy background, and part of what I've always been a geek and a nerd about is personal development. Always trying to fix myself or make myself better. Usually driven by the idea that kind of deep down I'm not good enough. And so I'm kind of going through life in this perspective, and I have various careers, and I spend hundreds of hours in therapy, and eventually I get into the area of coaching, and it's all this personal development stuff. And all this work is not really getting me to the point where I've got a sense of well-being or a sense of confidence or a sense of control in my life that I want. And so as I start to explore the area of coaching, and I take on my very first coach after spending a bunch of time in therapy and reading a lot of books on personal development, that I kind of got the bug. Coaching is different from therapy. It's about helping people achieve the future. It's about working on their skills, working on the way they handle problems or the way they look at life. Giving them quality feedback on that so they can change their minds about things. It's more active than therapy, and so my progression to become a professional coach is really just the extension of the path that I've been on my entire life. It's not my first or even my second career. It's actually my third. So in going pro in 2016, which is basically kind of the official start of the business after a lot of kind of false starts. The official start was in 2016 when I incorporated, so that I have gone pro, basically burned the ships. This is all that I do. This is how I make my money. This is how I live my purpose. This is how I contribute to the guys that I help, and that's how I ended up here.
That's a good story.
Okay.
You're a personal development coach in California right now, as we speak.
Okay. Yes.
With that personal development coach, if I am an analytical thinker and I want to get confidence, how you make me a better leader?
Okay. So my focus is primarily on guys that are over analyzers, overthinkers, tend to have technical careers, and because I'm one too, I'm one of these types also, that the idea is that we're super hard on ourselves. We have really bad imposter syndrome. Guys will go into a new job and they won't feel like they deserve or belong there. People are going to find out they're a fraud. The typical imposter syndrome, the perfectionism kicks in, procrastination kicks in, and all of these tendencies are because these guys are smart. They think about stuff too much. They try to fix everything in advance, and that leads to kind of this defensive position in life where it's about minimizing discomfort and trying to figure out how to find, dare I say, an easier path in life is kind of what they give into. So the idea of becoming a leader feels like too much responsibility very often, but on some level there's an area of improvement or an area of fulfillment that they haven't tapped into. And so when we talk about confidence, what we're really talking about, in my working definition of confidence, is can you handle your own negative emotional reaction to failure or disappointment? Really, when we think of fear of rejection or we think of fear of failure, most of what people dread about that is emotionally how much it's going to suck, how sad they're going to feel, how angry they're going to feel, how frustrated they're going to feel, how hopeless they're going to feel. That's actually what they're dreading. They're not actually dreading the actual rejection itself. If you didn't suffer any negative emotions ever, you would do things, get a result, and decide to try again or not try again. It wouldn't be nearly the big deal. So when I talk to guys about a working definition of confidence, it's really based on, are you willing to do what's important and difficult? And are you willing to handle and endure any negative emotions you might experience as a result of your actions? And once you make those two declarations, then you're actually a pretty confident person because you can handle anything. You can work your way through anything. And even if you do experience really high levels of hardship, let's say, then if you're handling the emotional part, then it's just one foot in front of the other until you get to where you want to be. So that's my position on it. Is that there's a lot of guys that are they're in science, they're in engineering, they're used to solving quantifiable problems, but when it comes to actually handling their emotional reactions to things, it's something that they don't spend time in or they're not comfortable with. So,
Understood.
To become a better leader or to step into the next level, you got to boost your emotional intelligence. You've got to work on your sense of what's important, and also practice, non-judgment. What are you judging positively or negatively? Are you judging yourself harshly? We need to take a look at all that stuff and then start to monitor it and then see, it's like, what are the habits that you need to break in order to move farther, faster, and feel better overall?
Understood. In majority of corporate entities are small business, to say a few, where you have the HR, you have office personnel, and you have the low-key employees. There's always a power struggle. So how do you help me overcome my power struggle through collaboration?
So are you saying that, let's say I have a manager who I disagree with? Is that potentially what you're thinking? I have a disagreement or a conflict?
Yeah, that's one of the problems, and they won't help you along the way. They'll keep you where you are and give you whatever, So how you help me overcome a power struggle? For example, my supervisor would not like me to see the necessary data that will assist me in moving ahead faster than I'm doing currently.
Right. So usually you need to figure out what's going to motivate. It's kind of the skill of managing upward. This is something that it comes up a lot. If you're not the one who calls the shots, then you've got to work harder to manage upward, and that means addressing what's important to your supervisor, your manager directly, and then framing all of your issues, conflicts, proposals through that lens of what's important to them. So it's a very it's a somewhat strategic process in the sense that we need to kind of know what motivates this person. Sometimes they're relatively narcissistic. They're motivated by how good they look to their superiors and the rest of the organization. Sometimes they're entirely focused on revenue and profit. If you can demonstrate that you can save them or make them money, they're probably going to go for it. If they're kind of the type that's all about kind of harmony and keeping the peace, then you got to present it in such a way that shows them, but by implementing or by getting this piece of data and what you're going to do with it, you're not going to rock the boat. So you got to get to know your manager or your supervisor pretty well, and get a handle on that, so that you're constantly looking at addressing what they need, raising what you think is important through the lens of what they need or what they prioritize. So that you've got a sense of constantly trying to solve the problems from their point of view instead of yours. They may not be sympathetic to your point of view, and this is based on your, how well you know this person or how emotionally intelligent or sympathetic this person is to begin with. If they care about you as an employee, or they care about maximizing your potential, then and you have that open forum to exchange real, frank information and feedback, then it's that much easier to do. But a lot of office environments are not like that. Egos get involved, so it's really just a question of, can you try to frame it, again, filter it through the lens of what's important to that individual, and how do you emphasize how you're going to address what's important to them so that they can see what's in it for them. It's a bit zero-sum. Yeah, it's a bit cynical. It's a bit zero-sum, but very often that's what happens. A lot of my clients go through that.
Yes.
trying to, although it's easier to work from home now, but for example, let's say somebody wants to work remotely or even live in a different city and never go into the office, and then, you've got a manager who insists that everybody should be in the office, kind of an old school traditional point of view, but maybe that manager doesn't realize that by having somebody work at home, then that's less space, less office space they need to rent, or what case can you make, what business case can you make, or what emotional case can you make that would appeal to them in order to manage upward. So that would go a long way to relieving some of that power struggle, because if you go into direct conflict, you may actually cause more problems, depending on who you're interacting with. Yeah.
Yes, and as of certain situations, certain people, individuals, they do need to be abstain from the regular supervisors, because if they do approach them with this kind of collaboration or communication, it might create more of a problem, because the ego that other person holds is like, it's got to be me, not you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, throughout the years in corporate or just any management experiences, it's pretty rare that you're in a situation where it's a high functioning team. It's a really high functioning manager, a really high functioning team, and everybody feels safe about being honest. That everybody feels safe about being honest. Everybody can take feedback well. It's pretty rare.
Yes.
It's pretty rare. Most people get their egos involved, and it's CYA and all that kind of thing kind of kicks in, and the blame gets passed around or filtered through, or the credit ends up in the wrong person. For sure. I mean, a lot of my personal complaints against working in corporate were along those lines. So.
Yeah, it is a common trend right now. I could feel it. Now, when there is an individual who's shy,
Mm-hmm.
what is your advice through breaking the relationship and make that communication more powerful in order to facilitate some kind of conversation? What is your advice?
It's a pretty general question. I mean, I would say that, shyness is just another word for, I would say, mild social anxiety. And the thing is that shyness is usually rooted in some sense of not fitting in, not being good enough, fear of being judged, that kind of thing. And I would think that somebody, especially in a work environment, in a dysfunctional office environment, who is shy is going to suffer more potentially, because they're probably not sure when to actually speak up and hold their ground and when they're not. It takes a lot of courage just to do it in the first place. But as you can imagine, if somebody's built up some resentment, they may let it out all at once, and everyone will say, "Whoa, where did that come from? Who are you?" So in that case, I would, if somebody was, let's say, an individual contributor, part of a team, part of a technical team, doesn't like his manager. Manager is unreasonable, sets unreasonable deadlines, has unreasonable expectations, doesn't offer quality feedback, that kind of thing. And then if you're dealing with like a lack of confidence just communicating reality to another person, and it's two levels of anxiety, so that person's probably not going to speak up. So it's not too different from my previous example. We need to prepare for some of these difficult conversations that you may or may not want to have. So then we lay out the case of what that person would want to change. If they have some sort of feedback or some sort of idea that would actually be helpful, then it's a question of, I would sit down with that client and say, okay, what is the case that you want to make? How are you backing that case up? Get clear on what you need to communicate, and then you start to work on how we're going to communicate it to open the conversation. We may look at What are the potential objections that might come up? So anything that we can do to try to forecast how the conversation might go. We're not going to over-engineer it, but we're going to come up with some ideas to how we think it might go. So a lot of that preparation can make a difficult conversation a lot easier because you will have gotten clear on how you want to speak about it. And then if you're clear on how you want to speak about it, it's going to be more confident. You'll be more certain in your level of communication. You'll be less likely to get thrown by somebody interrupting you or somebody raising an objection that you didn't anticipate. So build the case in advance, kind of work out what you want to say, how you want to open the conversation, what you actually want to say. And then I would say, take a look at what you think the response might be. What are the potential responses? What are the potential objections, and how would you handle them? How would you address them? And, if you're making some sort of a case or if you're making some sort of contribution. And do that enough times, over-prepare enough times, and then I predictably, I think that person's confidence would start to go up because they're likely getting somewhat better results than they expected just by practicing it. I think a lot of what shyness is, especially in the workplace, I think a lot of it is, not wanting to say something that's career limiting or say something that's socially awkward or, that kind of thing. So there's room. There's room to stretch a little bit. There's room to speak up sometimes. But I think preparation is really helpful in the beginning for a lot of people.
Right. Let's say we have a business and we're having a problem issue. There is no culture in that business. Now, on whether it's 2 to 10 people, we need to know that how you can help us. So what do we need to do as a business group in order for us to be able to call you in? What are the steps you bring in? For example, if you want to bring in a format, what are the formats you're going to bring in? Is there a steps or package situation where you have a number, objective, different parts of the area you lined for us to know if we really need you? And
okay.
if
So the way that I work is one-on-one. So generally in those scenarios, I would be working directly with the leader of that team, or potentially one-on-one with a member of that team. So I would not necessarily engage the entire team at once. But that being said, one of the very early things that I would suggest to a team that's looking to upgrade the quality of experience and the quality of what they produce would be to establish a framework for giving and receiving feedback. So the idea here, and if you go on Amazon and just search on feedback, there's a really awesome book that'll show up first that's just all about feedback. And I could actually grab that for you if you want. But the idea here is that if you consciously set an agreement with your people that we're going to set up a process for giving and receiving feedback. So your job basically is that we're going to give and receive feedback in a structured and relatively safe way, and the receiver of that feedback has the option of accepting that feedback or not using it. It's not necessarily obligatory. I mean, unless it's a direct order from a manager, that's different. But feedback is really looking in terms of taking in what other people's experiences of you are, and then allowing that feedback to sit without judging it, and then over time kind of naturally accepting aspects of that feedback or not. So the idea is that the receiver of the feedback is under agreement to not resist the feedback initially. They're really encouraged to try it on and see if it's true for them or not. So that there is a way to kind of set the stage, as long as you set these agreements that that we will be exchanging feedback and this is what we're supposed to do with it. And if their common value among the team is that everybody values putting their ego aside, then that can go a long way to accelerating the amount of fun they're going to have and the amount of productivity that they're going to have. So that's kind of the number one out of the gate suggestion that I have. If you can master that among a team, then you've gone a long way already. But most of my work is one-on-one, so in situations where I'm working directly with a CEO, then we're looking in terms of what can that CEO do to be a more effective team leader, and very often that involves not making assumptions about his team or what they're thinking or what's important to them. Being willing to dive deep into conversations with them and making it safe for them to open up as to what the real issues are, whether it's personal or in the workplace. And then going the extra distance to letting them know that you care. You care about them. You care that they got everything they need to do their job. You care that they're feeling engaged and satisfied in this position, and you're willing to help if they're not. Over the past year, I had a client that fell into that category, and much of what we worked on was like, there's a concern that there's conflict and disharmony on the team, and people are arguing about things. You can do something about that. You can talk to them one-on-one or together, and invite them to open up and have, to get candid with you and to really let you know what's going on. He got pretty far down the rabbit hole with this one because, he's getting a lot of, one particular conflict between two employees was difficult because the two of them were telling completely different stories, but ultimately one of them left the company anyway, which made it kind of interesting. Maybe as he was starting to ask more questions or kind of get an understanding of the situation, that the other person kind of decided to exit. So there's a lot of room for a leader there's a lot of room for a leader to go in there and really go to the trouble of doing what I would call an empathy walk with employees and really get a sense of what they need, where they're coming from, what information they might have, and taking it seriously. And at the same time, setting boundaries too and saying, that's not my concern, or what you're doing is not okay. But spending that amount of time, and it was tiring for him to do that, but it was worth it to put that time and the investment to get to that place where he had a much better understanding of how to keep his team happy and keep them functioning.
And I agree with it. Now that we have understand how you go about and create our conscious leadership, and you give us the development skills that we need to get confidence through mastering our emotions. Right now, I would like to know what is the required funding that we need to put aside for you in order to hire you.
Oh, do you want to start talking how much I charge?
Well, let's assume I called you for leadership consultation. Don't I have to have money, or it's free?
It is not. No, it is not free, and there's no. Based on the type of engagement, I would vary what I would charge. So I would charge more for a corporate engagement than a one-on-one engagement.
Right.
Generally speaking, yeah. So it's not cookie cutter standard rate. It really is customized to each situation. So what I do is with prospective clients is that I sit down and have around a 1 hour call to determine whether I can address what they're looking for or not, making sure that I can address it, making sure that they want to work with me, getting to that place of making a decision. And then when I make the offer, usually the offer is customized to the situation depending on what they're looking for. So it could be a wide range actually. Some individual group coaching situations are, when I open that up, it's very reasonably priced. It could be, under $1,000 a month. One-on-one, could be somewhat more. Corporate engagement could be quite a bit more. Right. So it just depends on the type of engagement that I'm building, designing and scoping for the client.
And how long will that continue? Whether it is 3 weeks, whether it's 3 months, or a whole year?
I usually work on a month-to-month basis. setting an agreement to set a 15-day, set 15-day notice at the end of the agreement, but it's a month-to-month agreement. Clients generally stay in it as long as they feel they need to.
What would you give someone who wants to pursue a career just like yours? What advice would you give them?
You mean, so you want to be a professional coach?
Let's assume one of the audience want you to coach them to be a professional coach.
Okay.
Because you never know who will call you.
Sure. Well, and to be clear, there's a lot of people that want to become a professional coach. There's a lot of people.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are out there because a lot of people want to have their own business. They want to do something based on their expertise. They want to work from home. There's a lot of things that are attractive about building this type of business. I would recommend that people go in eyes wide open, because what it takes in order to become successful doing this will stretch most people, as it has stretched me, way beyond what I ever thought I would be capable of. It has been, I often joke that my coaching career really began the day I was born. And I really only got serious about 10 years ago. And even then, I wasn't actually all that serious until 4 years ago. And even then, I'm reaching levels of like commitment and productivity and getting out of my comfort zone that I would, if you told me what I'd be 10 years ago, if you told me what I'd be doing in the future, I probably wouldn't believe you. So there are coaches that are just starting out. They'll ask me, they'll pick my brain a little bit, and they'll ask me, is it fun? Are you enjoying it? What about the business? And I don't sugarcoat it. It is a trial by fire by any stretch. If you're not a natural entrepreneur, if you're not a natural business person or a natural marketer to begin with, and I am none of those things by nature, you have to get up those learning curves, and you have to make it work. And it is not easy, friends. It is tough. You have to want it bad enough to persist and keep pushing and keep moving forward with it in order to become successful. That's the track that I'm on, but I don't sugarcoat it, and I actually I don't sell it to anyone as a path. It's not for the faint of heart. Is it worth it? No question, it's worth it. But will you suffer for your art? Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Will you pay your dues? No question, you will pay dues. You will pay dues that no one could possibly anticipate for you, and there will be days where you're like, why am I doing this? This is so hard. This is so painful, and I don't want to do it. Why am I doing this? And right. For whatever reason, I got to hit that stage in my life where it's like, yeah, I just burned the ships. I'm stuck on this island, not sailing back home. So, you got to get to that level of commitment where you're going to do it or die trying. I really do believe that. And that's when stuff really starts to take shape. That's when stuff actually looks, you build your own confidence in your ability to market yourself, or your ability to communicate what you do, or your ability to enroll somebody in what you do, and appreciate the value of what they pay to have you work with them. So it's not for the faint of heart. You got to really, you got to be really willing to go through a lot of very, very pointed, sharp challenges very regularly. But that's the whole fun of it, is when you start to get good at this level of discomfort, then everything gets easier to a certain degree. And that's the overall message that I want to bring home to my clients as well, is they do the hard stuff more often, go through the uncomfortable stuff more often, handle the consequences of their actions, whether they like it or not. The better they get at doing that loop and repeating it, the more chance for success they're going to have, because they're just willing to do whatever it takes or die trying. And so that's where I want my clients to go, and that's why they keep coming back.
Good. Well, we have reached a milestone in the interview, and we have extended a little time. So I'll give you two more questions and say it as fast as possible before we close.
Okay.
And one of it is, were there any barriers in your life you had to face and how you overcome it?
Where do I start? Every day is a barrier. The war on art, where it's like every day there is resistance to doing your art, there's kind of that everyday barrier, everyday resistance. I think that the biggest one, though, that was really difficult for me in terms of going pro as a coach and actually starting a business was that very sharp feeling of imposter syndrome, and the idea that if I express myself publicly, people are going to think I'm weird, people are going to shame me, they're going to judge me negatively, they're going to think I'm either stupid or don't know what I'm talking about. I think that's probably the single biggest barrier for me in making this transition. I could have led a life of quiet desperation working in a corporate, in a cube somewhere in an office, which I've done. And no one would bother me most of the time. You're creating a business and then publishing content and communicating with people online, dealing with really awful trolls, trolls that want to put you down and make you look bad, and try to ruin you online, or people telling you don't know what you're talking about, people that want to argue, people that want to judge you harshly for charging money for what you do. They don't think you should charge money for it. There's a long history of me struggling with people, especially online, coming at me from those points of view, and to a certain extent, nobody is immune to some form of cyberbullying or trolling, and we joke that if you're getting trolls, you must be doing something right. You must be, actually marketing in a more effective way if people are noticing and then reacting to you negatively. That means other people are reacting to you positively. You're being seen. But for me, that's the biggest obstacle, was really in terms of putting myself out there as a coach, owning my potential as a coach, owning my value, and stop making apologies for it, or stop fearing that people are going to think I'm unqualified, stupid, dangerous, a rip-off artist, whatever the judgments they may come at me with. And believe me, I've seen them all. Over the last, since I've been doing some form of coaching over the last 10 years, I've seen and heard it all. And at some point, it's like, yeah, it got to the point where it's like I said, I burned those ships, so it's like I better handle this stuff, and I better welcome it to a certain extent, better welcome it, because it means that I'm getting attention. And attention is okay. Attention is going to help bring me the type of people that I want to work with, hopefully. So there you go.
Yes, I like it. Our final question, which is our signature one, you did touch up on that question a little, where you mentioned your career began when you were born. So here is my signature question to you, Jason Miller.
Okay.
Do you think you, Jason Miller, was born for a reason in this world?
Oh, gosh, going so deep. Okay, so there's a reason why I was born, yes. Was there a predetermined reason why I'm here? I don't pretend to know the answer to that question. There definitely was events that led up to my being here, no question about it. Is this the reason? Am I on? Yes. I mean, in a true sense, I have stepped into my ultimate dream career, self-actualization, becoming this type of coach. It's yes. I mean, I've stepped into that. That's what I'm doing. That's who I am. and that gives me a very profound sense of purpose, and gives me kind of that rock solid feeling that I'm doing what I am, quote, meant to do, what I was, quote, designed to do. I am built for this. The coaching work that I do, I am built for it. It works. It works well. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, I think that that's me kind of evolving, getting to the point where I evolve into the type of work that is just the best possible fit for me. But I'm not all deterministic. I just finished watching a television series called Devs. I don't know if you're familiar with this show. It's on stream it off Hulu. No, it's on Hulu. I stream it off Hulu.
Hulu.
It's Devs. It's a mini series about this kind of super secret software development company.
I have Hulu, so I might look for it. What's the name?
Devs, D-E-V-S.
Oh, D-E-V-S. Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and the whole conversation in that show, in that miniseries, is about how deterministic is the universe. You know, how much is just a sequence of events that you know that we don't control or we don't know about, and it gets right into that philosophical discussion as it goes through. You know, kind of this kind of a thriller, you know, a mystery thriller type show. Very intelligent show, very interesting characters, but it definitely gets you in touch with, like, am I meant to do this? Is there a reason why I was born? You know, it'll make you think in terms of, you know, how deterministic is the universe, and is it premeditated, or what is it forces you to, like, where do my spiritual beliefs actually lie? You know, what do I actually believe in? Do I really want to stick to that belief anymore? And do I really know more or less than I did before? And it pushes you into that kind of that unknown, that really uncomfortable, unknown, fuzzy sense of, like, I really don't know what I don't know, and I don't know much at all, and I can't account for much of this. The current human experience, the moment that I'm experiencing now, I can't account for it. It just is. It's just an experience. It's just human consciousness in this moment. And
Understood.
Yeah, here we are. You know, it's like, I can't explain. Pick the spiritual belief that works for you, man. Go for it. If it fits the way you think it feels, do it. Do it to the max. Pursue it. You know, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to use it anymore. Go find another one, or don't do anything. But that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, Jason Miller, we did learn quite a lot from you. You explore the exploration about coaching for us. You go into great details. You show us that there is a way to solve overthinking, and you give us confidence, or you'll put some kind of method that we can engage in to give us confidence, bringing together a group through the top down, which is the CEO. If there is any conflict within the business. So we learned quite a lot from you, and you actually made it clear that for a business owner or for a startup to approach you, they must have certain aspects when it comes to the funding, how much it's going to cost. So that is clearly something someone would like to know if they have to call you. But right now, they could reach you through jasonmiller.coach, which is www.jasonmiller.coach, and your email, which is almost similar, jason@jasonmiller.coach. What other areas or media we can reach you if we have to get in touch with you?
That's the best way to get a hold of me directly. I am working on a YouTube channel, which is not ready to release yet, but it'll be ready soon. So that's coming. If you have questions or you want to actually engage with me on an actual call, if you go to jasonmiller.coach and you click on the link that says call, you can fill out a short intake form, and we can set up a time to talk. That's the quickest way to see if the possibility, if you would have wanted to work with me, or if I could help you in any way. So I've got a YouTube channel that's coming. I've got an online community also that's available to guys that that are too nice. It's called planetniceguy.com. If you feel like you're a guy who's too nice and you get that feedback a lot, that might be a place you want to go and hang out. Certainly, we get into a lot of the aspects of imposter syndrome, people pleasing, achievement, skills, that kind of thing, social skills. We talk about all that kind of stuff in that space. So it's a really fun community right now that I've been growing. So you can check that out if you're interested. But Jason Miller, our coach, that's a clearinghouse for all this information. So I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate your interview, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. When we are shooting, after editing and we're shooting out this email blast or posting it, you will be informed of a link through Apple Podcasts. So you will be well informed, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Calix.
You're welcome, Jason. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to iBond Studio podcast show with your host, Calix. If you like our show, give us a review. We want to thank our sponsor, Free Conference Call Service, who made it possible for these interviews. You can contact us via ibondstudio.org or support us on anchor.fm/iBondStudio.